Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hopenning. This is a place where hope happens. We have created a space here that is positive, uplifting, and more than anything else will bring you hope. I am a part-time rapid transformational hypnotherapy practitioner, and at this moment, I am also a full-time elementary school teacher where I have been for the last 34 years and will be for 2.5 more weeks until I retire. And I'm very much looking forward to doing hypnotherapy full time. My beautiful co host, Marina, is a full time clinical hypnotherapist specializing in rapid transformational therapy. And this is the Hopenning number 67, Overcoming Exhaustion. Now, we both live in Alberta, and I'm in northern Alberta, which with long daylight hours in June, it's hard to get to sleep early. So we have daylight 4:30 in the morning, and we have nighttime not till 11 o'clock or later at night. And so Marina experiences this too somewhat as she is in Calgary, Alberta, and right now she is in beautiful British Columbia. And so welcome, Marina, and I can't wait to talk about overcoming exhaustion.
Thank you so much, Fran. It's wonderful to be here again and to just bring hope to people. So, yeah, as you say, there are so many physical things that can happen that make us feel exhausted. And I find beside the daylight, I try to fit so many things into my day. So, as you said, I live in Calgary, British Columbia. I have a cabin in British Columbia, and it's on an acre. It's an acreage, and I have a massive, massive yard, and to my standards, and I have a very big vegetable garden, too big. Well, I was very ambitious during COVID, so that translated into this very big vegetable garden. And before I came here, I worked nonstop in my garden in Calgary while working full while trying to spend time with my grandbaby and my husband and take my dog for a walk. And then I came here and I do exactly the same thing over and over again. So I feel just physically that my life is so full that sometimes I am just exhausted. So that's my exhaustion story on this level. And I feel that we will definitely talk about other kinds of exhaustion.
Yes, and I am a teacher, and June is the month where it all catches up to us. The 10 months of getting on a treadmill and running as hard as you can until Christmas, and then we get a little time off, and then we run as hard as we can until the spring break, and we get a little bit of time off, and then we run until June. And basically, if you were to talk to a teacher right now, Marina, and it doesn't matter what area of teaching they are in, they are exhausted. And 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 part of it has to do with working hard and just the accumulation of time that we invest into our career. And like you, I have a garden. And like you, I also have outside family that take my time and attention, and but there's something more to it. There's more to it because I can be working hard physically and be rejuvenated. Being outside rejuvenates me. I could push a lawnmower around all day and not be exhausted. And yet there's something deeper going on in both of our lives, which is sucking our energy out. So, Marina, if you were to um, classify that or pinpoint it or analyze it, what else is going on for you? I know what's going on for me, but how about yourself? What have you been doing in the last 2 weeks or whatever, um, on top of.
So I've been traveling. I had my youngest son graduating from the East Coast, and it's a 5-hour flight. It's 3 time zones removed. And so we left on a Friday and we returned the following week, Wednesday. And we had flew in that day, and the next morning early was my older son's convocation evening. And so that was added stress because when I was not in my own bed, I had trouble sleeping. I had trouble sleeping with in the hotel room. The pillow was on me, and I find that not sleeping sometimes really contributes to that. But on top of that, I think there's always a lot happening. I do overload myself sometimes. I take on more things, and in a sense, it's a procrastination. And it's like, oh, just I can just add this little thing more in my life, and then before I knew it, I feel not just exhausted but burned out. And then you turn on the television, you turn on internet, you turn on social media, and you are immediately bombarded by so many things that are going wrong in the world. And that I find exhausting. I find any drama exhausting. I run away from it. I work very hard in my life to live a drama-free life. So all of those things can make me very tired.
Mm-hmm.
That's me.
Yeah.
How about you?
You said a couple of things, stress. And there's the physical stress on the body, but there's also the emotional stress that you have to go through when you're traveling now. I mean, it might have always been there. I don't remember it ever being this bad with airlines. Um, and the flights that get rescheduled, or the gates change and you're running across an airport and you're looking to make, all of those extra stresses. I'm sure they were always there in some capacity, but it seems like traveling now, especially if you're flying, is so much more stressful than it used to be. And even the making sure the little bag is, the right size for your carry-on, and then throwing stuff out because, oh my goodness, that won't fit in that little bag. And all of the extra all the extra stress of, let's make sure I have someplace to plug in my phone at the airport while I'm waiting, and can't find a phone plug in, and oh my goodness, it adds layers onto the stress. And so for me, absolutely, the flying is stressful. Getting to the destination can often be stressful as well, because unfamiliar languages sometimes, unfamiliar locations, things don't work out the way they're supposed to. You expect one thing and you get another. The hotel room isn't correct. And you have to deal with all of that, as well as, like you said, lack of sleep. So when we don't have the proper sleep, we can't handle our stress as well. And so that adds to stress when we don't get enough recovery time. And one of the things that you also said was, when we're going here, we're going there, we're going back, and we're expected to do certain things. I think expectations that are put on us by family, by friends, by society, by whatever, isn't also an extra stress. It's like expectations of somebody else putting upon us in order to do things right, or to get things done, or maybe it's even our own expectations of ourselves. And so all those added levels make it very difficult. And this is the season for graduations. So not only did you have your one son's graduation on one side of Canada, You also had your second son's graduation back within days of each other. So all of that disrupts routines. What I'd like to talk about, though, is the emotional stress of decision making. So when we have to constantly make decisions, and we do that in rapid transformational therapy, it's we watch our client, we listen to our client. Which direction do we go to? It's a quick decision making thing. We um I know your style because you've hypnotized me before, and I believe you know my style quite well too. But it's quick decision making on the part of the therapist about how this is proceeding and which direction to go in. Um, would you agree, Marina?
Fran, there's a few things that I want to backtrack a tiny bit that you said. I do not find traveling stressful. Because my philosophy in life is what I focus on will increase. So I've made a decision. I used to be very afraid flying. I used to fear flying, but I changed that. And I decided, no, I'm going to be excited. So I always build myself up with, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to see my son again. I cannot wait. I'm so proud of him. It's amazing. I cannot wait to see him. My husband and I would always do something fun at the airport or in the airplane, like watch the same movie, laugh about it. And it's fun spending time with him. I really like my husband. So I changed that. I've taken the stress of what flying used to be for me. I've taken it away. Even little things that you mentioned, that you have to make sure you have everything in your bag. I I fly a lot. So even when I go to South Africa, that's like a full day, 25 hours plus, depending on if you're lucky, it's about 25 hours from Calgary. Um, that's a lot of planning. So now if I have a very short layover, I know, okay, I definitely needed to I need to do this. So I'm very organized now where that is concerned. I don't stress about it anymore. And there's really not a lot of things that I'm okay without for one day if I somehow forget it. So I'm very, yeah, it's really not stressful for me anymore. And then I also believe that we have the power to decide everything is going to go smoothly. And I say, I've once my luggage was misplaced when we traveled to Serbia, but they delivered to us to our apartment the next day. Um, but and I just always know it's just going to be okay. So that's one way. On the positive side, decision making in sessions, it's really that's not really a stressor for me like it may be for you. So because I'm quite intuitive, I really just trust myself in that situation. So, but let's talk about you then. How do you deal with that specific stress? And I know you have a big trip coming up, so there's that travel stress that's also on its way for you.
I look at decision making as a cup. So within the course of a day at school, we are making constant decisions, constant, constant, constant. And unless you have been in that environment where there's constant neediness, people who need you constantly, whether it's 20 or 25 or small people especially, you're constantly troubleshooting everywhere you go within a school building. You're troubleshooting. It's, do I let that one go? Do I deal with it? What's going to happen? I am having to anticipate, continually anticipating where could things go wrong, and how do I prevent that from happening? Because when you're dealing with a large group of people at one time, the decision making is constant. And so for me, by the time June comes around, my cup of this of capacity to make decisions is done. It's full. And research shows that one of the reasons, and this is super interesting, one of the reasons that people have nighttime eating is because you can start out so well about, okay, I'm only going to eat, certain types of food today. I'm going to be so good. I'm going to stick to my plan. I'm going to not eat the carbs and all of that stuff. Well, by the time you get to the evening and you're done, it is just so much easier just to go through a drive-through and pick something up, or get or phone for pizza, or whatever it is, rather than stick to the plan of this healthy salad and healthy green, all of the healthy stuff. And so decision making takes its toll. And burnout, I believe, for teachers especially, comes because so much decision making, not enough time to make split second decisions, and expectations of the public about how we should be doing our job. So with therapy, it's a different type of decision making. And like you, I'm very intuitive. And so, but when my cup has been full of my other job, um, it's more difficult to make any kind of decision. And so it doesn't matter if I'm going to be getting on a plane or not. I just want to sit there. I
Right.
just want to sit there and be entertained by the screen. Whatever of the movies I've chosen, I just want to be entertained for the next 6, 10 hours, whatever the length of my flight is. Um, and so by the time I get to the gate and the gate is changed and I have to run down the hallway, oh, that for me, that's stressful, because if I have connecting flights, I don't want to miss my flight.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to get where I have to go and get in the transfer and go to the hotel and sleep.
Right.
And so it's interesting. And so people come to me exhausted and unable to find motivation to do things, or finding that they're procrastinating all the time, or finding a lack of joy in life, and finding just hopelessness, a sense of hopelessness. And that in itself is super interesting, because when we get to the bottom of it, it has nothing to do with too much on your plate, or nothing to do with the fact that for myself, it's like a garden, a job, a house, paying the bills, and all of that. That's not what it has to do with. There's something in our goes right back to the childhood. So in your practice, Marina, when you found people that have been overwhelmed and exhausted and procrastinating and not getting stuff done and unmotivated, what have been some of the underlying things, the underlying stuff that had resulted from childhood, that brought this upon this client to the point where they're coming to see us to get some help with it?
The first thing that comes to me is maybe a weird thing, but avoidance.
Mm.
And just starting to put so many things in your life. You don't take time for you. You don't take time to take that breath. You don't take time to reset. Fran, we've said this many times. Everything starts with a thought. And just thinking, I need to take a breath. I need to reset. I need to meditate. I need to do yoga. I need to go for a run. I need to go for a walk. I need to talk to a friend. Just taking that time is so important. And I think so many times we just avoid taking care of us. Underlying to that is, I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. Not even by myself. I find that a lack of self-love is one of the biggest issues that we have with my clients. It's really not learning how to love. And you are in the Christian faith, and I grew up in the Christian faith. And one thing that I always think of is the Bible verse that says, and I know some other religions also subscribe to that, love thy neighbor as thyself. However, where do they teach us to love ourselves? And to me, it's okay. We need to go recover that so that we know. Because in my life, I've experienced that I've loved my neighbor more than I love myself because I never learned how to love myself. So if you take all those layers off, those are definitely some of the things I have experienced, that being too busy and being exhausted and not thinking you have the coping skills you need to deal with things and putting extra things in your life, it all stems from those things. What do you think?
I agree. The piling too much work on top of ourselves and taking on too much. There's a there's the intention of I can get all this done. Sure, I can get all this done, and we always overestimate how much we can get done in a certain amount of time. It's like, yeah, I can do that, and I can do that, and I can do that, and that. And then when we get involved with it, it's like, it's overwhelming. And so it's like, whoa, backing up. And then we leave those other things, or we do not a good job. And then we beat ourselves up over it because it's not good enough. I should have done it better. It could have been so much better. And even people complimenting us on whatever it is. It could be our garden or our flowers or the beautiful trees. There's a tendency to think, yeah, but yes, the dandelions or whatever it is. And I can't, it's never good enough. And so that sense of perfectionism, because only if it's good enough am I good enough. The two go hand in hand. Where where's the line that says, but seriously, it is good enough. It's good enough. You're good enough.
You have to start to believe that, right?
Yeah,
Questioning
and
some.
that's from childhood, right? It's not something that just shows up when we're an adult. I'm thinking in particular of a client that came to me exhausted. She didn't have the energy to do all the things that she used to do. She used to, I mean, we're in northern Alberta, so she used to go quadding and hunting and fishing and did all this stuff with her grandkids and so much. And she just was exhausted, and she couldn't even do the fun things that she liked to do. And she was thinking maybe it's lack of sleep, maybe it's something, but nothing worked. The meds didn't work. The Nothing worked. And after a session, when during the session it came out that expectations that were put on her as a child, because she was the oldest in the family, it was expected that she helps out, that she's looking after the younger kids. She's making sure that they're not getting in trouble. She's making sure, that supper's ready to go or whatever, because her mom was a single parent and her mom was at work. So when the kids came home from school, she was in charge of, and the list was endless, making sure that the boys didn't get in trouble. And so she became that person in her adult life where she was in charge, where she continually was the person in charge because she grew up with that. And eventually it came to the point where she was exhausted, totally exhausted, and she couldn't do the things she loved to do anymore. And it was under hypnosis that was revealed. And putting the dots, connecting the dots, right? It's like, okay, here we see you being this type of a child where you had all these responsibilities. Another scene where you're a little bit older and this is the responsibility you had, and another scene. And so we connect the dots. And the client is able to connect the dots too. So now, why do you think that you're feeling so overwhelmed? And the client can see it. Well, I just never thought of that. I just never appreciated that about myself. And then at that point, we're able to reframe it. Let's look at this again from an adult's point of view. And then it's more clear and they get their joy back. They get their hope and their motivation and their ability to get stuff done the way they want to because it's so understandable now.
Good job on that, Fran. That's amazing. And as you were talking about the cup, I had that experience in December when I became so overloaded between my Christmas singing, organizing, at over 150 hours of performance that I organized, and that was a lot. And then still working full time. And then all the kids came home for the first time in, my goodness, I don't know how many years. I think 2018, actually. That's a long time. We had all the kids in our house, and all of them have partners, and it was just the balancing between different personalities, getting to know each other, sorting each other out, and then cooking Christmas dinner. And I did not realize how tightly wound I was until my husband said to me, Marina, stop. You're not yourself. It reminds me of that Snickers commercial. Have a Snickers. I was becoming a person that I do not want to be anymore. So that was just that realization as well. That, no, I need to stop. I need to do that. I want to talk about a different kind of exhaustion though, and that is in general in life. In the last little while, two of my husband's committed suicide.
Sorry, repeat that?
In the last little while, two of my husband's colleagues have committed suicide. And this is not about suicide, but when you hear the story behind the story, you realize that there is, I want to say, spiritual exhaustion, a lack of hope that is going around in the world. So have you encountered that? How do you do it?
Yeah, the lack of hope is a big one. And it seems like post COVID, post COVID. And I think part of the reason is when we were locked down, when COVID was on, when when we were consumed with COVID, there was a distraction, right? There was a distraction in our life. It was COVID. And all we could do was look forwards to when we could be unlocked down and all the things we were going to do and how much fun it was going to be. And, we were making plans. And so we're no longer in lockdown. And then it's like, it's not turning out the way we expected to, right? And so in the meantime, life continues, and yet I just we have this sense of hopelessness, almost as though when is it going to happen again? There's, the media, the scientists, the whatever, there's going to be some other big thing going on, whether it's forest fires in Alberta or whether it's COVID or whether it's some other bird flu thing. There's always something looming on the horizon that we have to be anxious about. We should be anxious. The media is telling us we should be anxious. We should worry. We should be doing something. And that all adds additional stress. And I think eventually those people that think, I don't think there's any hope left, there's no hope anymore, that's where it becomes, I think, dangerous.
We live in a world of absolute division today. Absolute division. And I have to always, when I meet with clients who have no hope, I have to establish what would give you. And we fear things that has not yet happened. We hear news news, we read news, we see social media posts, we see opinion pieces, we see comments, we see division, we see hatred, we see people calling each other's names, we see people trying to tell us how to live. All of that has the potential to take. So where is hope? Where is hope ultimately for you?
Where's hope for me is believing that there's a power in charge that is greater than I am, that's greater than the media, that's greater than the next COVID, that's greater than the next forest fire. There's a power. I believe in God, whether we choose to call God whatever name we have. I believe that there's a, ben, 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 a power that's in charge, and it doesn't matter what happens next, that it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out. And sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we get caught up and we forget that we have been created for a purpose. We're here for a purpose. We're here, and sometimes we don't know the reason, and we won't know maybe until until the next life, until when we're I call it on the other side of the sky. And yet, if we can rest in that, if we can just rest in that and take the moment to be reflective, meditative, back away from what's going on, shut the news off, be with people that fill your soul up rather than drag that energy out of you. I think it's very powerful to be with like-minded people that believe that that we can let go because there's a power in charge that loves us and wants the best for us. And if we can just wait and see, that's where my hope is.
Me, hope is in love. And if we can bring people back to love, and again, love thy neighbor as thyself, please love thyself. If we can bring people back to that point of understanding what love is within them, it can be God, it can be the universe, it can be whatever they believe in, but love conquers all. And if we can start to spread love from within us to everybody around us, I believe we can change the world. And you touch on something else. It's very important to me to help my clients find out, why am I here? It's a journey that I had to walk. I got to a point in my life where I was questioning, why am I here? I had a life-threatening disease. And I had to think, but why am I here? Why was I created? At that point, I felt as if I was a waste of space. I felt as if I was floating through life. I had no purpose. Nothing worked out for me. And I had to sit down and figure out, why am I here? I had to go to my higher power that I believe and figure out, what is my purpose? And that is my hope. My hope, my purpose today in me is to give other people hope. To sit with that client that do not know where they're going to get the energy because they're so tired and burned out, to open their eyes tomorrow and to get them excited about their future, about their life. I had a client last week who went through cancer twice and then discovered lumps again. And she was so paralyzed by fear that she was convinced when the results came, it was going to be cancer. And I got her so excited about her future, discovering why she's here, that by the end of the session, she wanted to live.
Mm-hmm.
When the results came, it was not cancer. She's healthy. It was scar tissue. And the email she wrote me is, Marina, I cannot wait to live my life. I cannot wait for my future. And that is for me where hope is. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter what their circumstances is. To find hope and to find love. You know, John Lennon said, make love, not war. And I cannot emphasize that more. In everything we say, in everything we read, if we can come from a point of love, in everything. I believe that in the collective coherence of doing things together, we can change the world. I've seen when I lived in South Africa, it's a dry country. It's not like Canada. South Africa is a really dry country. And it used to be a farmer's country. So I lived in a province where there were a lot of farmers. And when we would go through so much drought that people could not function, the churches would all say, okay, this is a day of prayer. It doesn't matter what you believe. This is a day of prayer. Everybody at 7 o'clock in the afternoon is going to come together and pray. I remember once vividly, while we were in that church, I could hear the rain start to move. And I believe that is the power of doing something together. So if we can start to love each other together, if we can start to love each other, our own lives, and get excited about life, and just fall in love with life, be in awe of life, and the miracle that we live, we can change everything. I really believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's an incredible experience to realize that, to pull yourself out of the valley. I call it the valley. And for whatever reason you're walking in the valley, it could be a relationship issue or a health issue or a just some type of expectation that we thought was going to happen and it didn't happen, and to remember that you and I, we were all created for love. And if we can remember that, and even if we do have to walk in a valley for a while, eventually the valley ends. And to remember, this too will pass. And that's the hard one sometimes, when it feels like it never will. This too shall pass, because it will. It will pass. And if you and I can make somebody's life better by a session, a smile, a helping hand, a kind word, a go ahead of me in the grocery line, sure, go ahead of me when we're driving. I think all those little things add up. And so instead of a cup full of to the top of something that's difficult, I think we can fill people's cups up with positivity, with kindness, with gentleness, with compassion, with understanding, with hope. Um, and then they can do that for others, right? It's
Analogy of rising above it. I always use just a visualization of a hot air balloon. And all the stuff, all the stresses, all the world events, the things that we really cannot control, it's on the ground. But in ourselves, we have the ability to just imagine that we're in that hot air balloon and go a little bit higher and higher and higher. Relationships that are not present, friendships that are not present, somebody saying something hurtful to you. Doesn't matter what it is. Just rise higher, higher, higher within yourself and see how they get smaller, and the issues, it stays there. It doesn't come within this pure positive place with you. So I love that feeling that we can create within ourselves of detaching from the fears, from the things that we really cannot control. I love to detach from drama. I love it. I love that ability to take a step away. I used to be very jumpy and hypervigilant and just, but now I don't. I take that step back. And I guess that's who I became in December when I was overloaded, overworked, overtime. I became jumpy.
yeah. And that is me too, because it's not going to be the 2.5 more weeks that I'm teaching. It's going to be what's going on inside here, and remembering one foot in front of the other. right? One foot in front of the other. Just, it'll all get done. It will get done. I will be finished. June will be done, and then it'll be summer, and then it'll be a holiday, and then it'll be one foot in front of the other. And remembering this too shall pass, and I'll look back and go, I I've done harder stuff than this.
Just deep breath and yes. Well, this was great, Fran. Thank you for bringing up this topic. And it's amazing.
Thank you.
Yes, and we will be back in full force in the next couple of weeks here, and then you are gonna go on a trip. And yeah, but we will be here. So until next time, thank you so much for tuning in.
And if you liked, subscribe below. Thank you, Marina. Love you.
Love you too.
And thanks for joining us, everyone.
Bye.